Normal People on Hulu, getting a lot of buzz recently. Dave and I watched the whole series, and mate, I got some mixed feelings about this series.
Whoa.
uh, I want to see kind of where you're at with it. I'm gonna say it's a well done series and it's pretty good. And I was invested in these characters.
Hmm.
I left with so many questions throughout, and just kind of like feeling like some of these character choices and things that they did. Maybe it's because I was upset with them, or maybe it's because I don't think they're totally logical, and maybe that fits for the characters. But I was a little bit frustrated with some of the directions the show went. How are you feeling about Normal People, though?
Wow, interesting. I really love the show. This is one of my favorite shows of the year. I thought it was incredibly affecting, and as you said, you really get invested in this story. It's a young adult series that's portraying young romance, yet it's still done really smartly. Along that line, it also happens to be really erotic and sensual in
Mm-hmm.
a honestly just incredibly impressive way, the way it's done. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was great. I was trying to stop myself from watching it so fast because I just immediately got invested in the way they were telling the story, and the leads had just sparkling chemistry from the jump that I think it's a total success. But yeah, I mean, what are these issues that Connell and Marianne couldn't solve for you? What's going on here?
Well, it's a lot of it has to do with the ending, but also just like the way that a lot of the conflict develops, right, is a circumstance happens in one of their lives that pushes them possibly in a different direction. And they just never fucking talk to each other, man. It's so aggravating. Like, okay, so you don't, I don't really know the logistics of Ireland, but they're going to Trinity, which is
Yep.
this
It's in
very well
Dublin.
respected school in
Hmm.
Dublin. It seems like it's maybe like an hour away from their hometown.
I looked it up. I think it's a little farther than that. But yeah,
Okay.
they're from Sligo, which is like on the other side of Ireland. If you go west, I think I was looking at the map because I was curious what that train route
Right.
they were using.
Right. So he's like, "Oh, I don't have a job, so I can't pay my rent, so I have to move back home for the summer," which is like 2 months, maybe 3 months that he has to be away. And she's
It's a
like,
two and a
"Oh,
half hour drive.
okay, 2.5 hour drive."
Damn, I
And
know
he's
it's small.
yeah, and she's like, "Oh, okay, well." And he's like, "I guess we got to break up then." And she's like, "I guess we do." And then they break up, and I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why didn't one of you say like, maybe we try long distance for the summer, or maybe we just try to
Hmm.
go every other week?" Like, there's never any like talk of them like, "Oh, maybe we should try to figure things out." It's always just like, "Nope, we're broken up. See you later. Go do your thing."
Right.
Marianne's like, "I'm gonna run back to this other guy," and Connell's like, "I'm gonna go be depressed." Like, it's very frustrating in that sense. And
Yeah,
then they're smart people, obviously.
yeah, of course, of course. So yeah, I definitely had that thought too when I'm watching it. I'm like, what happened here? Then I think as you watch it more, it came into focus for me because when Marianne and Connell have that ice cream chat in
Mm-hmm.
Italy, gelato chat, uh, Marianne's like, "Oh yeah, we never really talked about this, right?" And that's on the topic of the big wealth disparity, class disparity between their two upbringings, their two families, and it kind of highlights that Connell was always really uncomfortable with his class, and that had kind of been portrayed throughout the show as throughout things happens, and Connell just wasn't able to ask for that, and that's still obviously it's still an annoying trait, but that's just who the Connell is, right? Like he struggled with that. It was something that Marianne didn't really notice, and on the one hand, I really like that as just kind of the framing of how we get introduced to these characters, right? You have Connell, the popular kid who's working class. You have Marianne, the outcast who's really wealthy. And then obviously that gets flipped later on when they go to Trinity, right? But the conversations they have later on, I think, let me forgive that. But you're right. If they were better communicators, maybe if they were a little more mature, uh, some of their issues wouldn't happen. but I think that's why it's honestly so effective, because you understand still why they had these issues,
Right.
and I think it's just done really well.
Uh, I was also a little bit frustrated with the ending because I feel like it's a similar type of thing, right? Like Marianne's life has become a lot of like what Connell's life is. Like she goes to holidays with his family.
Mm-hmm.
She spends a lot of time with him at school, even though she's developing her own friend group and she's finishing up her degree as he's, finishing up a year before her, it seems. And he's going to New York and she's just like, you got to go. You got to follow this opportunity, which he doesn't even seem totally like he really wants to do. He's kind of like, yeah, I guess I could.
Me,
And
me in New York City. Can't even walk down Dublin without tripping on myself.
uh, and then she basically like makes him say he's gonna go, and then she's like, "Yeah, but I'm not going." And I'm like, "Well, why? Like you again try long distance for 1 year and see where you're at. You're gonna graduate. Maybe you get into a college over there. You like your life over here. What is your life? You're this one friend who you watch movies with at night. That's all that's been established as your life outside of you doing the things Connell does. That
That,
part also frustrated
that
me.
was the thing. I was like, she's like, well, I'm really comfortable and happy with my life here. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Because I get it. Like, we get it. It's well
Sure.
established that Marianne was pretty fucked up, right? And having a
Yes.
hard time
Yes.
uh, coming to grips with who she was and like being valued and appreciated by people around her, right? Like, she went through a lot. And I think the Sweden scenes really go through that. And a lot of that shit's really tough to watch. But yeah, just they're almost like letting each other go, and they both helped each other get to a better spot in their lives. Obviously, Connell gets through a big bout of depression when his friend dies, right? Like, so it's like you understand it, but like you're so invested in it, and you're like, but wait, you
Right.
don't have to do it this way. I think that's why it's so great, because you were that invested in these stories. And I think the chemistry between Daisy Edgar-Jones and Paul Mescal is just so strong from the jump
Yeah.
that like they just really sell everything.
No, totally. And that's the thing is that this is a well done show, and I think they actually touch on a lot of topics and build out these characters in ways that make sense. I'm just frustrated that some of the decision making wasn't fleshed out a little bit more. These conversations weren't had because I think very easily it could have come up where, like, Marianne's like, well, I got this opportunity or this internship for the summer, so I can't go back home, or I'm going to do this thing, so maybe that doesn't make sense for us to stay together right now. That would have made it feel a little bit better for me. But I do agree with what you're saying. I think the way that they handle the suicide of Connell's friend and his depression and connection with therapy afterwards is actually really, really well done. I think the way that they kind of show Marianne's arc around her family and how that's kind of led to this idea of like what she deserves in relationships, especially relationships with men, is really well done. And kind of the way that she goes from Connell, who it treats her like shit, but in a not so I don't know,
Right.
flamboyant way, not so
Like,
obvious way, and to it being
unknowingly
more and
usually.
more right, to it being more and more abusive, and her almost wanting the pain, feeling like she deserves the pain, makes is such a well done, built out character. And yeah, I think they really sell you on this relationship. I was rooting for them the whole time, and it was so frustrating when they weren't fucking together. I just wanted them to figure it
Yeah.
out. So it leaves me frustrated. One thing I know we've joked about, I wanted to just bring up to be on the
Oh yeah.
record.
We got no. This is an important point. I think go into it.
So this is a trope that's in a lot of things, but Daisy Edgar Jones is
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous. Like she is absolutely stunning. Anne Hathaway lookalike to me, just like totally beautiful. And they set her up as like the rich girl who's alone, weird, and like kind of ugly. And then she like does her bangs a little differently, puts on a tight black dress, and goes out. And they're like, oh my god, like you aren't that ugly anymore.
Oh,
I was
Marianne,
like,
what's you do here? Something new? I'll be doing you
I
a
just
favor to sleep with you. And it's like, you sure about that, buddy? Like,
yeah, right. You're this ugly like guy from the UK, and this is like a 10 in like every respect of the word. And man, I just like could not get over that because like she goes on to have these like douchey boyfriends throughout, and people are like, "Oh, what was she like in high school?" And she's like, "Oh, she didn't have any friends. Like, no one even really wanted to bother with her." I'm like, I don't get why. Like, I feel like any guy that saw this girl in high school would be like, "Will you
right.
go out with me?" Like,
Yeah. I think that's one piece of criticism that I've seen from fans of the book, and this is obviously adapted from Sally Rooney, her second novel. It's a very new novel. Sally Rooney is a really fast rising star in the modern literary scene. I think she's 29 now, two hit novels in. They're already developing the same team, Lenny Abramson and crew, where they're developing A Conversation with Friends as well to be a show. So people that are fans of Normal People, the book, I think between the internal monologue of Mary Ann and just, the way books are different, it seems to be made more clear that that is actually Mary Ann's circumstance. But, now that we have Daisy Edgar-Jones in our mind when we think of Mary Ann, it's a little bit of a walk. But yeah, obviously I'm letting it go. But it was just really funny. It's like the whole time it's like, oh, well, because she wears her hair in a braid. It's like,
right.
It's like, she's like, what? Are you serious? Just kind of funny.
Just totally blew my mind. Fionn O'Shea played Jamie. Him and Sandy, my least favorite characters I've watched on television this year. Sandy from Plot Against America. Both of them can kick rocks. And at least Sandy was like somewhat redeemable. Yeah. Fionn O'Shea as Jamie is just like a total god, dude.
I mean, in Sandy's case, Sandy was like, what, 14? He's like a little shit kid, doesn't know any better. You can forgive a lot of it, right? But yeah, Jamie in Normal People is just completely detestable the entire time. Despicable. Like from the start where he's like putting the moves on Mary Ann when she's still with Connell. He's like touching her leg and stuff and be like, oh, you right for him? And it's like, dude, you're just being a creep. Like, What the hell? And then, oh man, like the conversations he has when he's just like this classist dipshit in Italy. And like he's like, the Guggenheim, it's so overrated. And it's like, what? Do you just not now understand how snobby you sound when you talk like that? So it's kind of funny just how one note his character was, because most arcs of the show are so well written and full of depth, and Jamie was anything but.
Right. Yeah, Jamie, especially when Connell's like, yeah, God forbid you're around some Asian people, huh, Jamie? And he's just like, just looking at him with his like full glass of wine. Then he like overflows it and throws it down. I was like, get this guy off the show. Like I literally can't stand him for another second. Right. Obviously well played because that's the character, but damn.
And I think in a sense, Jamie almost is more important in like writing and like fleshing out Connell than Mary Ann, because like for Mary Ann, it's part of like the way she's just going through this thing where she wants to she's valued by feeling devalued by her partners and stuff, right? But for Connell, it's like, well, Connell is being written as this thoughtful jock figure, right? He's almost like an internet boyfriend trope where it's like, oh,
Noah
well, he's
Centineo.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing though. Noah Centineo is like presents as kind of dumb hot guy, whereas Paul Mescal is like, yeah, I'm rugby star or Irish football star who also reads and writes real good. I could have kicked your brother's ass after he hit you, but I didn't. I just threatened him. I could have wiped the floor with Jamie, who's obviously scared of me and intimidated by me, but I didn't. So ultimately, I feel like the show becomes more of a Paul Mescal vehicle than Daisy Edgar-Jones, and that starts kind of early on, right? Because when they have their conflict, where in the beginning, where Connell basically like doesn't ask Mary Ann out to like the prom or whatever, and makes her feel really bad, and they split. And then from that point, we follow Connell still taken into Trinity, and we don't see Mary Ann again until they reconnect at Trinity at this party, and like she's the social butterfly and she's wearing her hair down and she looks amazing because, spoiler, she's actually a really attractive woman. And like I really like that choice though of how they actually followed Connell. They followed the perpetrator of this conflict,
right?
And kind of stuck with Connell a lot throughout. And Paul Mescal, I believe this is like his first main role. He's been primarily a stage actor to this point. Both him and Daisy Edgar-Jones are just superstars now, man. They are incredibly famous like that, and it's been kind of cool to see and hearing them talk about how it's been wild for them. But it's justly earned, because I think they're both tremendous actors and perfectly cast.
One last thing I just wanted to shout out. I think the way that they portray consensual sex in this show is really well done, and like It's never like made weird. I know like as someone who in my role in my job, I have to have these conversations for like Title IX trainings and things like that in terms of like having consent throughout the act
Mhm.
and things like that. They display that really well, especially in like the last scene where you really see them doing it. And Marianne asks Connell to hit her, and
Mhm.
he's like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that." And like kind of seeing that play out. Not only I think the psychology of it kind of it comes into play, and him being like, her be like, "Do you like when I say that thing?" or "How does that
Mhm.
make you feel?" To then him saying, "I don't want to do that," is just really, I thought, well written, well done, well displayed. So I want to give
Yeah,
them kudos
absolutely.
for that.
And
Good.
I mean, the overall presence of intimacy coordinators on productions these days, that's the norm now, and
Mhm.
obviously that's really great. But like, despite the fact that we're getting this, really by the book, the way it should be done, sex, right? They're wearing condoms. He's saying
Mhm.
he'll stop if it hurts. All those great things that you should be doing. You're actually seeing that portrayed, and it's not stopping away from the fact that the sex scenes you're watching are really hot
Yeah.
and they're shot really well, still tastefully, yet really sensually as well. So that I think that's kind of like that's the lightning rod part of the show, right? That gets a lot of attention, but
Mhm.
it's done a lot better than just about any other sex scenes I've seen in a long time. So
Totally agree.
that's I think also an important note. Also, shout out Connell's email. He goes from Hotmail to Gmail completely unexplained during the show. Definitely a big plot hole. There was a Frank Ocean Nikes drop at one point that I really appreciated. And I also wanted to shout out the Italy scene where they're riding bikes and
Yeah.
Sufjan Stevens does Mystery of Love does not play because this was not in fact Call Me by Your Name. So that made me sad. But I just listened to that song 10 times over the weekend. So it's all good.
What a great song.